Ask just about any pro cyclist and they will tell you that the team time trial is absolutely brutal. Whether it's the risk factor, whether it's the responsibility of your teammates, or whether it's just the fact that it really, really hurts. We've come to Robby Ketchell, who's a data analyst at Team Sky and a man who knows the team time trial inside out, and frankly probably better than all the riders because of the job that you've been doing. First up, what are the physiological demands that do make the team time trial so painful?
Well, it's just a hard event because if you could think about being in a breakaway in a road race, you're out there at a pretty moderate intensity and you're sharing that role with 3 or 4 other guys. But think about squishing that breakaway into a shorter duration and the intensity is so much higher. And you've got 8 or 9 guys on the road that you're sharing the responsibility for that team to go faster. So every time you come to the front, you're trying to do the best effort that you can for your team. But once you come off, you come back to the end of the group and you have to accelerate to get back on the back of it because you're going 55, 60 kilometers an hour. Now, you have to also make up for some of the mistakes that the other riders make. And so there are all these micro accelerations that you need to make until you get back to the front, and then you need to do that effort again, and your team's relying on you. So it's just a really hard event to make all that come together.
Yeah, so if you were looking at a power file of, say, a time trial, you might see a very steady line because the rider is riding at their threshold, whereas in a team time trial, then you just see massive spikes and peaks and troughs. Is that right?
It is, yeah. So in a normal time trial, you're just doing a constant effort. And in a team time trial, you're trying to make that group do a constant velocity. So when you come to the front, you're at your maximal intensity, trying to make that group go as fast as you can. Then when you pull off, you're trying to recover. Then when you get to the rear, you spike your power again to get back on. And then there are all little accelerations due to corners, coming out of the corners, trying to stay with the group, going up climbs. If there are potholes in the road and you have to swerve around them, get back on the wheel in front of you. So you see all these spikes that are not what you normally see in a team or an individual time trial.
So what, I mean, I know you can't give me a straight answer, but what kind of power would you expect to see a rider doing on the front, let's say on a flat road at 60k an hour, and then how much they then have to lift it again to get back on at the end?
Yeah, so it depends on the size of the rider and what their aerodynamics is. So if you have a smaller rider, they obviously don't have to produce as much power to go the same speed as a larger rider. But when a rider comes to the front, they can be producing anywhere from 350 to 600 watts. When they pull off and they come to the back, they have to spike their power to accelerate to get back on, and that could be a 500 to 600 watt acceleration. And then when they get on the back and when they're sitting in, they can be doing anywhere from 200 to 250 watts just to stay on. But there are all these accelerations that they're doing back there too.
Yeah, that doesn't tell the whole story, does it?
Right,
I guess.
yeah.
So what would make the perfect team time trialist then? I mean, is it a sprinter? Is it a guy with a big engine, like a normal time trialist? What would you be looking for if you were going to say that's the person?
Yeah, it really depends on the group that you have. And when we go to a Grand Tour, we have a Grand Tour team that may not be the most ideal team time trial team. But if you were to just select it for a team time trial, you'd be looking for a mix of time trialists and sprinters. So you want the guys that have the big horsepower that can go out like Bradley Wiggins and can do a good hour time trial and ride by himself at 55k an hour. But you also want the guys that can accelerate, because when you have a time trialist come to the front and they lift the pace, you generally put a sprinter that was just in front of that time trial, so when they come to the back, the sprinter comes to the back, they can accelerate and get on when that time trialist is lifting the pace. So if you have a mix between those two different types of riders, you can have a really cohesive group.
So are the riders aware of the way you order it then? Do you get, before a stage starts, someone coming up to you going, oh, Robby, I can't believe you just done that to me, you just made my day an awful lot harder because you stuck me on this guy's wheel as opposed to that guy's wheel. Do you ever get that situation?
Yeah, so it always becomes a discussion. So what you do is you take all the data and you optimize what the lineup is, and then you go and present it to the riders and you say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and they understand that, and they always want to try that. Then you go out and you do the team time trial training a few days before the event, and there's always a little bit of mixing of that. So it's good to take in what their perceptions are and what their feeling is of what's gonna make them succeed individually, but also as a group. And a lot of times there's one or two guys that say, like, you know, we should change this one here and that one there. And you do that and you try it and you tweak it, but at the end of the day, everybody understands that it's about the team going the fastest. So that may mean that somebody's going to hurt a little bit more just to sacrifice themselves for the team.
Yeah, but the underlying thing then is that it's an absolute science, but there is still a degree of art in there as well.
Yeah, well, the art is part of the science too, right? Because there are some things that they can perceive that we can't acquire through the data. Right, so we have to take that. You know, it's always the argument of what is art, because us as human beings, we take in data ourselves, and what we perceive is information that we need to process and give back. So we need to treat the riders and the athletes as if they are collecting data themselves, and use that to optimize.
So do you collect their rate of perceived exertion at the end then?
We don't, but we take their feedback and we take it into account.
Right, thanks very much, Robby. That's an absolutely fascinating insight into the demands of the team time trial. So we really appreciate you lifting the lid on it. And I'm sure you'll want to be watching loads more Giro d'Italia content. And you can get through to our playlist of all our videos if you just click up there. Or to see the bikes that the guys are riding in the team time trial, our Pro Bike playlist is just down there. And if you click there, you'll get straight through to it. And finally, before you leave this video, make sure you subscribe to GCN so you can keep right up to date with all our content, whether it's Giro d'Italia, Tour of California, or anything else.